Hello and welcome. Kerry here from Healing Humanity, the power of a proper human diet, along with Mr. Adam Lacey. How's it going, Adam?
And Adam from Healing Humanity, the power of a proper human diet. I'm doing absolutely great, Kerry. How about you?
I'm doing wonderful, better than I deserve. I feel great. I'm looking forward to sitting down and chatting with you and the amazing, incredible Dr. Anthony Chaffee, who should be joining us here momentarily. In the meantime, if you all have any questions, please post them in the sidebar with a QQQ. The purpose of this call tonight is pretty exciting. We have a new trailer for a documentary. Some of you may have seen it, but many of you probably haven't. And we're here to share it with Dr. Chaffee. Dr. Chaffee has been a huge part of our Healing Humanity project. He's actually in both of our trailers, the first one we did and the new one. And, Adam, I was just thinking back. Dr. Chaffee was the very first doctor I asked if he would participate in the documentary. And he
And
said
he
yes.
said yes.
Enthusiastically. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it was about 831 days ago. He said 100% yes, which was really awesome because honestly, when I had the idea to do the documentary, I knew we were going to need some good doctors and experts. Even though the primary focus is the individual story, we can't have a documentary without the experts in there. And I had no idea how we were going to secure doctors and experts for this. So the fact that he said yes and was so willing was incredible and kind of opened the floodgates, so to speak, to ask all of the other doctors to participate. So, and now here we are 891 days later. So
Yes, he's always been so very gracious with his time and assistance in this effort. So we definitely commend him for that. And he's probably one of the top. He's definitely in the top 5 as far as the length of time that we've actually filmed a person. So Maggie's probably number 1.
yeah. And only Maggie, I was going to say, he's definitely number 1 in terms of the experts. But Maggie was definitely more because we spent a week with Maggie, which, by the way, we never would have had Maggie in the documentary if not for Dr. Anthony Chaffee. He made that whole introduction. So it's kind of surreal there for sure. So for those of you that don't know, we'll just chat about this real briefly before Dr. Chaffee joins us. Adam and I are filming a documentary called Healing Humanity. We've been filming all over the world, 60 interviews. We've filmed literally all over the world, all over Canada, all over Australia. We filmed in the UK and all over the United States. And the purpose of the documentary was to follow real individuals who have experienced incredible healing eating a carnivore diet. In some cases, I would say miraculous healing. And several of those individuals, the goal was to follow over the course of a year. And some of the individuals had such well-documented stories that we were able to catch up with them afterwards, but still see them in the beginning, like our friend Lynn from Midlife Carnivore, who had excellent documentation of her story. But yeah, Adam and I have been traveling around the world filming the documentary. Adam, what are the stats on what we filmed so far?
Well, we've filmed over 430 hours of footage, over 5,500 individual clips, and that's 48 individuals and over 60 interviews of those 48 individuals, and in 4 countries around the world.
Yeah. Hey, here he is.
Oh.
Dr. Chaffee, how's it going?
Good, man. Sorry, I was having massive technical issues. My internet kept crapping out, and then my camera wouldn't work, and I kept trying switching browsers, and it just kept like, your browser's not supporting your camera, and I'm like,
oh no.
It was like, and like literally, it was like working, and then it just like all shut down, and then just said, no, nothing works, and I was like, come on. Well, so I don't even know if my mic is working. It's saying it's like on a different mic, so I don't even know how.
You sound great.
Sound great.
Look great. Okay. Sound great. Yep, coming through. We so appreciate you, Dr. Chaffee, coming on and
of course, man,
chatting with us. We were talking a little bit about the documentary and where we're at, and Adam was sharing some of the stats, and it's incredible. I was just saying, I've been carnivore. I'm coming up on 900 days, but you were a big part of my journey, Dr. Chaffee, and you were the first doctor when I got this crazy idea to do a documentary, you were the first doctor, the very first doctor I asked if you'd be willing to participate. I honestly didn't know what you would say. I had no idea. And I remember vividly you said, 100%, I'm in, let's go, we're going to do it. So I'm really appreciative to you. You're also, I believe, Adam and I were just chatting, the doctor expert that we filmed the most of, for sure. We filmed Maggie more than you, but in terms of the doctors and experts, we filmed you the most. So,
I thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate you. Your voice in the documentary is absolutely huge. So, thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah. No, well, thank you guys, and it's it's an absolute pleasure to be involved in it. And I think it's such an important project, and I mean, it's just so good to get this out there to more and more people. I was really impressed that you hit the ground running on this. You saw how much of a massive impact it had on your life. You saw how much of a massive impact it had on others, and you're like, yep, we're getting this on film. We're getting this out to as many people as possible. This is too important not to share. You just changed your whole life to just say, okay, yeah, we're doing this now, which is really impressive. Not a lot of people are able to do that, or willing to do that, or think that they are capable of doing that. And he's like, well, that'd be nice, but I've got all these other things. And you just said, yep, I'm doing it. I'm going to make it happen. So, kudos to you, man. That's a really big accomplishment.
I really appreciate that, because it has been definitely taken over my life. Part of it, I think, Dr. Chaffee, was stupidity. New carnivore energy, right? You get this carnivore energy and you're like, I could do anything right now. But it also, when I first announced the documentary, my plan was, let's just do a little documentary about the carnivore diet. But it has since turned into just a worldwide massive project. I was just saying earlier, we filmed 60 interviews. We filmed all over Australia, all over Canada. We filmed in the UK. We were almost done with it a couple times, and then it's like, we can't finish this without including this miraculous, incredible story. And so it took a little longer than we'd like that way. But that's the big question we get, Dr. Chaffee. I saw it in the chat here. Why is it taking so long? I just want to answer that one real quick. The reason is because the premise from the get-go was follow people over the course of a year. And we did that with Bill Knott. We filmed him on day one, and then we had to wait a whole year to film him on year one, day one. And we attempted that with a couple people. So that alone is going to add a little bit of time to the thing. And I've only been carnivore a little over 2 years, so it really hasn't been that long. But the last thing I'll say on that topic is we're completely done filming now. We filmed our 60th interview, which was Dr. Sean Baker. And we're in post-production now, and we're editing through the end of the year, and we hope to have it ready by the early next year. The only other thing I'll say is the other reason it took so long is we didn't have a budget up front. We didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy Netflix-approved cameras and travel all over the world. So it's been scratching and clawing and fighting for every penny to continue filming. Like, we did that 24-hour live stream. And you, again, Dr. Chaffee, saved us during that. You came on for a couple hours while Adam and I were falling asleep. And well, we raised money from that 24-hour live stream that allowed us to film for quite a bit after that. And then we ran out of money again. And it's like, we got to do a meetup. We got to do another live stream. So it was a lot of stopping and going. But we're on the home stretch now, so it's really exciting.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And the thing is that these projects do take a lot of time. And like you said, it's because of how it started. It's like, okay, I just want to do this. I have this sort of vision for it. But then it's a work in progress. It's not like it's just like we got a script from Hollywood and it's just like, this is what we're doing. It's all set out and structured and all that sort of stuff. You have an idea of what you want to do, but then it grows and it develops and it evolves. And then you're talking to other people, you meet other things. You're like, whoa, that's an amazing story. We got to do that. And wow, this would be really exciting to add that in too. So it's sort of a living project. It's not just, we need to, film scene 1 through 78. And then it will go into post-production. It's something that developed and evolved. And I think that as a result of that, I mean, 2 ways to look at it. One, yeah, you can't do it as quickly and streamlined as you could if you had a very, very clear set script. But at the same time, it's something that's going to be more meaningful because you saw things at the time that were just like, wow, this is amazing, this is incredible. And now how do we pull all these things together? So it's I think it's going to be much more impactful and special just because of that. And so I'm definitely looking forward to just seeing it come out and seeing the impact it has.
Yeah, you nailed it 100%. And one of those topics was cancer. We were never going to have cancer in the documentary, and it's like a major part of the documentary. And I'll also add, not only are we doing a documentary, we're doing a series afterwards. We're 100% focused on the documentary now, but we have enough to probably do 2 episodes in the series on cancer. The series is going to be an episode on every major health issue: depression, cancer, fertility, autoimmune disorder, and hopefully we'll be able to continue it from there. But we weren't going to include cancer initially until I met Jeff DeProsperous and heard his just incredible story. And then it expanded. Now we have Tammy Peterson in the documentary. We interviewed Professor Thomas Seyfried, and then we were blessed to interview his entire team at Boston College. Brad and Maggie Jones, like the cancer part of it. I never realized, Dr. Chaffee, like how far eating a carnivore diet can go. Like, cancer in my head was always, that's a genetic fluke. You know, you just got it. You got bad luck. Until I learned the truth that the majority of people having cancer nowadays, I believe, is from chronic systemic inflammation, and most people are systemically inflamed from the foods they're eating. It's almost like a cautionary tale in the documentary too. It's just like, everyone knows someone that's had cancer, is getting cancer, but avoiding getting cancer is one of my big reasons why I'm continuing to do carnivore, even though I've met all my other health goals. I want to live a long and healthy life and avoid things like that. So,
yeah, well, or that, they might know somebody or have known somebody or will know somebody, unfortunately, because now the statistics are that 1 in 2 people, 50% of people, certainly in America, will at one point have cancer in their lives, which is an appalling statistic. It was much lower than that 40 years ago, much lower than that, several times lower than that, and 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it was vanishingly rare in compared to 1 in 2 people, and even then, anthropologists and ethnologists were arguing that this was really a disease of civilization, that there was really only people in Western countries that were getting cancer in the first place. These native populations, like the Inuit, the Maasai, etc., they really weren't getting cancer when they were living their natural diet. But then they came to Western cities. They started living a more Western lifestyle, Western diet included, and then they started getting cancer, and actually were more predisposed to getting cancer. They didn't have as many defenses against these inappropriate ways of eating, living, and exposing themselves. And you don't have to even think of it as just eating. It's just you're being exposed to things that harm your body, and specifically with cancer, harm your mitochondria. Could very well cause DNA damage, but also cause mitochondrial damage. That mitochondrial damage precipitates further DNA damage. So, I do think that this is largely, if not exclusively, a metabolic mitochondrial disease. There are genetic changes that involve and do alter the course and the function of these cancers as well, but they're tied hand in hand, right? That one begets the other. When you have damaged mitochondria, it causes oxidative stress and further damage to the DNA as well. And certain genetic predispositions typically affect the functionality of the mitochondria. So you have things like Tay-Sachs disease and these other sorts of things that actually massively increase your risk of developing cancer down the road. But what do? They damage the functionality of the cancers. It's very interesting. If you have functioning mitochondria, this has been shown by Nobel Prize winner Otto Warburg, and then shown again and again multiple times over in experimental data sets, that if you have healthy mitochondria, you really can't get cancer. The reason being is because mitochondria actually run the cell. And so when you're talking about cell division, inappropriate cell division, unregulated cell growth, which is cancer, because these cells are just dividing, and nothing is holding them back. What holds them back normally? It's healthy mitochondria that say something's not right. You're not allowed to split and change and multiply, right? But if the mitochondria are damaged, it's an active action that they have to take, that they recognize something's wrong, and then they physically go and stop it from proceeding. But if the mitochondria are damaged, then they can't stop it. It's like they don't have any guards or security or anything like that, and just things are just running or forming at work or whatever. It can't tell that there's something wrong and should shut down the process. And so these mitochondria are damaged, they're destroyed, and then these cells just grow and replicate and divide. And that's cancer, unregulated cell growth. They also are unable to apoptosis, program cell death, kill themselves, saying, hey, look, there's something damaged here. We need to shut this whole thing down. We need to just close the factory. Mitochondria would do that too, and it's an active process. So these are very important. And when you take mitochondria, they've done this, and it's nuclear transfer study. I'm sure Professor Chaffee talked about this. I've talked about this. But when you take now not all cancer cells even have any genetic changes. There are entire cancer lines that have no genetic changes whatsoever. So we can't say this is exclusively a genetic issue if there are no genetic changes whatsoever in some cancers. But every single known cancer has damaged mitochondria. And they took the nuclei from those cancer cells with the DNA that we would say this is cancer, even though not all the cells have that DNA and they still behave as cancer. They took the ones that did have those genetic changes, transferred them over into cells that had healthy mitochondria, healthy cytoplasm, no cancer. It didn't behave as cancer. You could even clone these things into rats and frogs. That is what they used. Then they took the damaged mitochondria out and replaced that in the cell, a normal healthy cell that had normal healthy DNA, and it did behave as cancer. They couldn't clone it; they just died. And then to sort of really put the nail in the coffin, they just took healthy mitochondria out of healthy cells, put them into cancer cells, and then suppressed the cancer because those healthy mitochondria stopped it from dividing, stopped it from going forward, and just say, nope, this is wrong. We need to fix this, or you're not allowed to replicate. So it's one of those things that is so important because it is such a catastrophic disease. And this is something that takes so many people's lives. It costs billions and hundreds of billions of dollars to treat this. And we're significantly impacting the lives and health of the planet by just saying, well, this just happens. Probably was happening all the time. We just didn't realize that 1 in 2 people got cancer because we're all stupid and nobody understands anything. Except for now, because we're so smart, and this iPhone has the cancer detection abilities, and that's what's doing it. No, that's idiotic. You know, doctors previously had to do a lot more with a lot less. They didn't have all the MRIs and the scans and CTs. They had to figure things out through clinical diagnosis, and they were much better at it. They were much better at it. And now we have MRIs. We've had MRIs for a long time. We've had CTs for a long time. We've had these diagnostic abilities for a very long time. So you cannot say that's just all of a sudden we just got this new piece of technology and everything's changed. Also, you know what happens when you get cancer? You die, and you die from cancer if this goes unchecked and untreated. And so we would see that. We would see 1 in 2 people dying from cancer a century ago when we didn't have any treatments, right? So it's not very clever, and it's honestly really, I mean, it's just evil, honestly, trying to suggest that no, this was always happening, and we just didn't notice it. I mean, you're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, and it's going to cost them their lives, and that really bothers me.
I'm with you. And the way it gets normalized, like you were saying, oh, it's just the way it's always been. It's like, this is crazy. 1 in 2 people, something like 1,600 plus people dying every day from cancer, and it's younger and younger people. And still, I don't know, it's just something with the human brain where we try to normalize things, and it's just the way it is. Just accept it. And billions, trillions spent on cancer research, prevention, medication, all of this stuff, and nothing. They're not even making a dent in it. It's just
it's getting worse, right? it's I mean, certainly we have treatments for certain things that are improved and have better 5-year survival rates, but more people are getting cancer, and obviously that's where you start. You know, I mean, if you have a cracked dam and it's just flooding the plains, it's like, yeah, sure, you can put up some sandbags, you can get some pumps and try to drain it out and things like that in your local surrounding. But really what you need to do is you need to go fix the dam and stop that from leaking in the first place. And that leak's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Just more sandbags. Yeah, we need better sandbags. That's what we need.
Yeah.
You know, and no, you need to fix the crack in the dam because that's what's causing the problem in the first place. And that's what we're trying to do. Well, some people are trying to do, like Professor Chaffee is trying to figure out, okay, well, why is this happening in the first place? And you know, if you can figure out the mechanism and what's actually happening, then you can figure out the cause and you can figure out the prevention. And if you figure out the prevention, then you're halfway there to figuring out the treatment, because something that can prevent a disease can potentially also treat it. Now, if you have something like cancer, there's just this massive shift in the cellular functioning. You know, it's not a 1-to-1. But you think about something like diabetes. that's essentially you're exposing yourself to carbohydrate, sugar, alcohol, seed oils, those sorts of things that cause peripheral insulin resistance. There's other things too, but those are major ones. Statins can do that as well. And so you remove those causative factors, the diabetes goes away, and it stops it from ever happening, but it also reverses it in people who have it. And that's what we see in human data and human experimental data, that you can actually put them on a ketogenic diet, like a carnivore diet. And this actually reverses type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance. I see it every day in my practice. I mean, that's the easiest one to treat. You know, it's like lead poisoning. You know, if you don't want lead poisoning, stop eating lead. Right? If you don't want diabetes, stop eating carbs. If you don't want high blood sugar and high insulin, don't eat carbs. That's what raises your blood sugar. That's what raises your insulin. There are other things too, but either way, it's an exposure. And if you remove that exposure, not only will you prevent the problem from happening, you will also reverse the disease in the individual. Cancer is a bit trickier because it's, you know, you have this damaged cellular function, and it doesn't necessarily just snap right back. I mean, there's a point of no return where you just can't, your body's not really going to be able to rebuild your mitochondria de novo if there's sort of nothing there to build from. That's sort of this idea, that area, and those cells are just going to have to die. You're going to have to sort of get rid of those somehow. But some of them, maybe you can save some of those mitochondria, and you get those mitochondrial functioning back. Maybe those cells can actually revert back from being cancerous to precancerous or non-cancerous as well. So that's the idea also. And why wouldn't you try? Why wouldn't you try to figure out how to fix a crack in the dam instead of just trying to make as much money as you can selling better sandbags?
Yeah, that's the question. That's kind of what we're getting at in the documentary too, is good doctors like yourself that want to treat the root cause, and then the rest of the world that's just covering up the symptoms with medication and making more and more money. It's crazy. On one hand,
oh, sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, on one hand, for me, I'm like, I found my healing. I'm a grown man. It's just time to move on. But then you look at the next generation, my children, kids, and it's like, this is crazy. This is unacceptable. I know, like, the oath is do no harm. And when you're putting someone on medication that they don't need, like I was for years and years and decades, it actually did a lot of harm. I was on statins for like 10 years. It was the stupidest thing I've ever done, for almost 10 years. And I had brain fog and memory loss and probably weight gain and who knows what other side effects from it. And then I needed more medications for those, and then more from that. It's insane.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, most people, unfortunately, because the medical establishment has been very good for a very long time. And you know, in my great-grandfather's day, they were looking for cures. They were trying to cure diseases. They were trying to improve humanity. And that has been corrupted in the last century, when this has become this corporate sort of takeover and corporate capture of the medical industry. And they've changed, altered, and corrupted the medical field and profession into just pushing products. You know, so we're just on-floor salesmen. I mean, that's really what doctors are, and we're trained to do that. I mean, flash it up with some science and physiology and things like that, make us think we're this, you know, this scientific community, and we're pushing the boundaries of human knowledge about, you know, health and longevity, and it's actually couldn't be further from the truth. We're given the tools. We're given the tools and an understanding of the human physiology to actually come to the conclusions that are correct, and say, hey, how do we actually fix this? You know, we actually are given the tools, but we're spoon-fed the answers. We're not told, hey, look, here's the physiology, here's the background, here's all the tools. What do you think? And allow people to sort of figure these things out. They said, here's all the tools, here's all things, and this is why this thing's right. This is how you treat this. This is how you treat that. This is how you treat this other thing. And it's just pills, right? And so we're not trained to think any other way. We're not trained to think on our feet and outside the box, saying, hey, how do we figure something out? How do we change our understanding of this? We're not trained like that, but we are given the tools. I mean, everything's there. I mean, I was given the same education that millions of others were, and because of, you know, certain things that I saw, and I was able to say, like, hold on a second, this isn't adding up. And I started being able to look into it a bit further and find in this current scientific literature everything I needed to know. But we're spoon-fed a very curated look at the scientific literature, certainly as far as nutrition is concerned, and no one even knows that these things exist. And I mean, you just go on PubMed, go on Google Scholar. Google Scholar actually has a wider net. You get more studies. PubMed's sort of an old boys club. They only let certain things in, which is interesting. But either way, you just go in there and put in any illness that you can think of and ketogenic diets. Like you will almost always find something. You know, diabetes, certainly, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancers, whatever, autoimmunity, all sorts of things. So we have studied this. There are thousands of randomized controlled trials in humans looking at ketogenic diets for specific health outcomes. And it's the most rigorously studied diet, but none of this gets taught, even though a ketogenic diet, by that name, was specifically a prescription diet for epilepsy. And prior to that, for diabetes. I have my great-grandfather's medical textbook from 2009, or sorry, 1910. 1910, from William Osler. He was the great medical educator in American history, and he was John Hopkins' first professor of medicine. And there's a chapter on diabetes, and it's very clear. You treat this with diet. It's a zero carb diet with equal parts protein and fat. This is the only thing that keeps people alive. This is the only thing that prolongs life in type 1 and type 2 diet. They didn't differentiate back then. And they said that, you know, there's a very high mortality rate in juveniles, kids, it would be the type 1s. But very high does not mean 100%, does it? It means very high. And a lot of people died, but they died after 8-9 months of having no insulin. And now people say, well, if you have DKA, you don't have insulin, you're going to be dead in a couple of weeks, right? These guys were living 9 months to a year just with ketogenic diets, right? And they call it an animal-based diet. They just ate meat. It's really what they ate. And some of them didn't die. Some of them actually lived long-term without insulin and were able to ostensibly start producing insulin again, which I've seen in clinical practice, and it's actually in the case literature. There's 2 case reports out that people have used ketogenic carnivore diets to treat type 1 diabetes. They got them early, and it seemed to have slowed or stopped the autoimmune process, that immune damage process. Type 1 is an autoimmune disease. If you can stop that process before the beta cells are completely dead, then ostensibly they can regrow. Also, in type 1 diabetes, it damages the beta islet cells that make insulin, but it doesn't actually damage the beta stem cells. So if you can figure out how to trigger the stem cells, you could regrow the beta cells and the body's ability to make insulin. That's absolute. That potential is 100% there, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it to an extent in people that catch that early. I have 2 patients who had presented with type 1 diabetes and full diabetic ketoacidosis into the hospital, had elevated antibodies, had 0 C-peptide, 0 insulin, blood sugar through the roof, ketones through the roof as well. And they were very sick. They were put on insulin instantly. Their blood sugars all over the place. They're hard to control it. I saw them a couple weeks after they got out of the hospital, put them on a ketogenic carnivore diet. All of a sudden, flatline on their blood sugar. There's no variability. Everything's right. So the very least you can say is that this is going to help you control your blood sugar much better and not have to have these problems with dosing of your insulin. But in these cases, presumably because it's an autoimmune condition, and carnivore diets help treat autoimmune conditions, because I think it is a root cause issue. I think it is this exposure, plant toxins, glyphosates, agrochemicals, industrial chemicals, what have you. They are damaging your body, your body's reacting to them, and your organs are getting hit in the crossfire. That's what I think anyway. And when you apply this in practice and just remove these exposures, it actually works. And these antibodies start coming down, the damage goes away. And so we see this in type 1 diabetics as well. In the case literature and in my practice, I've seen this twice now. Thousands of times for just normalizing blood sugar. But for these 2 individuals that we caught it early, after 6 weeks on a strict ketogenic carnivore diet, they started making insulin again on their own. You measure that by C-peptide. C-peptide is sort of a molecule that pops off. When we make insulin, it's bound to something called C-peptide, and then it splits off, and we can see insulin, and we can also see C-peptide. But when you're injecting insulin, you don't know which is your insulin and what's your body's, what your injected insulin is. But the C-peptide will tell you. So her C-peptide was basically 0 on presentation. Now 6 weeks later on a carnivore diet, it's not 0. It's not in the normal range, but it's there, right? And she's needing less and less insulin. And then 6 weeks after that, Her C-peptide is high normal. Her insulin is perfect, and she's on no outside insulin. And her blood sugar control was perfect. Her HbA1c was under 5. It was like 4.5, 4.6. And I saw that again in another individual. Same exact thing. Started making more C-peptides. Started from 0, and then started making more and more C-peptide, more and more insulin. Was off all insulin. Very low HbA1c, 4.5 actually. And then he sort of went off of it because he was working in the mine sites. He was working away. He couldn't control his meals, and he's back on insulin. He's back, chasing his blood sugar, and everything's hellish. And they said, okay, well, I can't do this anymore. This isn't sustainable. I'm going to go back on carnivore. And he does that. And I posted all this stuff with his permission on X. And you wouldn't imagine how many people got pissed off. I thought this would be pretty. This would be something to celebrate. Like, wow, look at this. This is amazing. And he went back on it. And again, about 3 months later, he was now making normal amounts of C-peptide, normal amounts of insulin, off all insulin, and his HbA1c was back down to 4.5. No, they have to be on insulin or else the blood sugar control is not going to be good. How do you explain the 4.5 HbA1c? Right? So obviously they don't need insulin. If they were to take insulin, that would actually be too much and that would be harmful. So this is something that's potentially there. I spoke to the author of those 2 case reports that used carnivore. They've been doing this for 15 years, treating people with ketogenic carnivore diets for various autoimmune issues, including type 1. And they found that when they do this with people that have been diagnosed with type 1 within the first year or so, they are much more likely to be able to make a recovery and be able to start making insulin again. Not all of them will make enough to get that proper blood sugar control. So we'll have to have a little bit of insulin in order to get an exemplary optimal blood sugar. And that's really important because high blood sugar is really damaging to the body. It damages the vasculature, it damages the blood supply to all your organs, and this causes an organ damage over the year. So that's really important to keep your blood sugar in the healthy ranges, in the optimal ranges. And if you need a bit of insulin to do that, then you need to do that. Interestingly enough, and this is, I think, is actually more physiological evidence that we are carnivores and we're not carbivores, is because, and we're meant to be in a ketogenic state, is because the insulin that our body makes perfectly matches the curve required by protein. You get like a bit of a insulin bump, blood sugar bump when you eat protein, and you get a big spike when you eat carbohydrates. The insulin that we make actually is that slow curve that fits the protein, doesn't fit the big spike of carbs. And this is why we have carbs. Even someone who's not diabetic, they'll have this big carb swing up, and then all of a sudden, bam, they'll go too low, and they have to eat carbs again. They have to eat carbs again. They go on carbs again. They'll have this up and down, right? That's because our insulin is sort of a longer acting because it's expecting protein. It's not expecting carbohydrates. And so when you get this big spike of sugar, but this slower arc of insulin, all of a sudden this comes down, now it goes too low. But your insulin's still here because it's expecting the protein. Now you have to eat more carbs to catch up, and and you keep doing that game, right? So when type 1 diabetics who require insulin go on a ketogenic carnivore diet and they're getting their insulin demand is for the protein that they're eating. If they take the old original form of insulin called R insulin, which is like our insulin, it matches that curve of demand that you need from protein, which I think is, again, more physiological evidence that we're not designed to eat carbs, we're designed to eat protein and fat. And so, when you do that in the first year and you put someone on a ketogenic carnivore diet, you are much more likely to be able to recover at least some of your body's ability to make insulin. And many people have been able to completely come off insulin. And that's what we see in the literature going back centuries, like Sir William Osler's textbook saying this. It's a high mortality rate, but it's not 100%. And some people survive, some people live, and some people never have a problem as long as they stick to the diet. It's a prescriptive diet. And they come off of that, all of a sudden the damage sets back in because you're exposing yourself to more of these harmful effects, and that's eliciting this inflammatory cascade that's damaging your beta cells, and all of a sudden, wham, you wiped out your body's ability to make insulin again, and then you're in trouble, and you could die. Speaking to the author of those 2 case reports, she said that they actually had that those 2 people had actually come off the diet, and bam, got full on type 1 again, had to go back on insulin. Now they're insulin dependent because they weren't able to stick with the diet. But other people that they've had over the last 15 years, there's people that have been on there for over a decade that never had to go back on insulin. She said that after a year, it's really uncommon. That actually she only had one person over a year since diagnosis that was able to come off insulin completely. But that guy had been on insulin and a type 1 diabetic for 15 years. And now he's off insulin completely, right? So that probably has something to do with those beta stem cells. Somehow we stimulated those things. And we've seen this in animal models. And they looked at the fasting mimicking diet, which is ketogenic diet. It mimics the metabolic state you'll be in when you're fasting. And they found that they could trigger regrowth of beta cells in rats, right? Now, these weren't necessarily like autoimmune driven type 1. They probably did something to kill these cells and said, hey, how do you come back? So it's going to be a little bit different. And also, if you think about it, if you have an immune process that's damaging these beta cells, then and you don't stop that immune process from happening, then even if your stem cells are pumping out new beta cells, they're going to get killed right away before they ever reach a critical mass and actually start taking over your insulin demands. So you have to stop that inflammatory process first. In an animal model, which it's not an inflammatory process, you've done something artificially to kill these cells and stop their ability to make make their insulin. Then maybe when you trigger the stem cells to regrow, then that's very easy because you're not continuing to damage these things. We're in an autoimmune process. And again, autoimmune, I don't think it is autoimmune. I think there's something else completely going on besides your body attacking itself on purpose because it thinks it's an infection. I think that's entirely wrong. And I have a whole video on that called Rethinking Autoimmunity or Autoimmune Disease. But either way, you stop the damage from happening, which we see in carnivore diet patients, that we stop this damage from happening. Even though you have these elevated antibodies, they're not damaging the body, and then eventually those antibodies come down. Then you eat something that is off plan, all of a sudden, bam, those antibodies shoot back up because that's what they're responding to. They're not responding to your body; they're responding to the food or the chemicals that you're exposing yourself to. And so, if you're not exposing yourself to this, then those antibodies can be there, but they're not damaging you, right? Because you're not what they are built for. Like celiac disease, when you eat gluten, you get all this damage to your gut. But when you stop eating gluten, that gut damage heals within 4 to 6 weeks, even though the antibodies towards celiac and towards gluten for celiac stay elevated for over 3 years after your last exposure to gluten, right? So that's not an autoimmune disease, even though it's classified as an autoimmune disease. Right? It's not, your body is not attacking itself. It's attacking the gluten, which is attacking your body, and it's stuck to your body, so your body gets hit in the crossfire, right? And so if you stop that damage, like saying the type 1, before the beta cells are completely wiped out, then potentially they can come back, or while those beta cells can still be stimulated, they could potentially come back. And we're at least seeing that in the early stages of type 1, which is amazing. And that's in the literature, in the medical literature, in the textbooks from the world's leading medical experts of their day. And literally, Osler is still considered the greatest medical educator in history. That is his claim to fame. And that is exactly what he said. Johns Hopkins, this is how you treat diabetes. You put them on basically a carnivore diet, a ketogenic carnivore diet, and people live when otherwise they wouldn't. And not all of them do, but it still shows that principle of addressing the root cause of the issue.
Right. That's amazing. Some of these stories are just, you almost start taking them for granted. You hear so much healing on carnivore from different things. Actually, I have a follow-up question for you on that. But if it's okay, maybe we'll show our first trailer here, and then we'll.
Yeah.
All right. So for those that haven't seen it yet, I'll just set this up real quick. This is our first trailer for Healing Humanity. We filmed this a long time ago. Bill Knott, who's in the chat, is in the trailer. Dr. Chaffee's in the trailer a little bit as well. This was before we filmed you. I think the last time we filmed you in Australia also, but this was a while ago, and we're going to show you the new trailer a little bit after this one. But here's our first trailer.
You know, I've been a doctor for nearly 30 years now.
We've all been misled for so long.
And they gave me pills for anxiety. They gave me pills for depression.
Our bodies are so deficient and so malnourished that of course you're going to get diseases. Of course you're going to get sick.
I believe that I may have caused my cancer.
It is no way to live. It's a nightmare.
I was just so hopeless for so many years. It just kills me to know that the answer was out there the whole time.
You know, just because you put something in your mouth and chew it doesn't make it food. Food is species specific.
We can sit back and we can say the bloody doctors, it's not their fault. They were trained and they're doing what they were trained to do.
The thing that really pisses me off is that the people that we should have been able to trust, the literal organizations that we look up to protect us, are the people who have done the majority of the misleading.
I'm 82 years old, which is just a chronological number. So you put the right fuel in the engine and the engine works.
I've now transitioned from a disease manager to a disease healer. I've transitioned from a drug dealer to a healer.
3 weeks ago, I didn't know this man, Bill, from Alaska. Bill is 700 pounds and he's been stuck in his house for 4 years. You nervous?
I'm nervous, scary. You know, I live in Alaska, the most incredible place on the planet. I had to have a toilet put, a few feet from my bed, which I can barely walk to as is. I have not been outside in over 4 years. This is life or death for me. I'm sorry, Karen. I'm sorry about that.
Here.
Man,
Thanks, dude. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Now, for the first time in a long, long time, I'm looking towards the future, which I've not had in such a long, long time. And it's just the most incredible feeling.
There we go.
No problem.
Yeah, so part of the reason we had to do a new trailer, Dr. Chaffee, is because we couldn't keep up with Bill's progress. He was down 200 pounds there. He is
Nice.
approaching half the man he used to be. He's almost down 350 pounds, started at 700.
Wow. That's amazing. And the thing was too, if I understand it correctly, I mean, we say 700 or whatever, but that was actually the maximum that the scale went to. We actually don't know if he was over. It could have been higher than that.
Yep.
It was just that's the max. He was at least 700 pounds.
At least,
and so that's such a massive recovery and accomplishment. I mean, that's huge. You don't hear that happening very often. It's fucking amazing.
It's crazy too, because like, what are the odds that would all work out? He was the first person we filmed, and this was before Adam was on board. So my daughter Emma and I flew there, and we're driving to his house, and I'm like, this is bad parenting. Like, this could be some crazy guy in Alaska, some dude I met on the internet. But the fact that here we are over 2 years later, and he's thriving on carnivore. We went and filmed him 1 year later. And that's in the documentary. That's a big part of the documentary. You meet Bill in the beginning, and then 1 year later, you see him out in the freedom of Alaska, which was one of the most profound, incredible moments of my life, witnessing that and filming that. But then, Dr. Chaffee, we just, my wife and girls and I just got back about, I'd say 3 weeks ago. We just went to visit Bill because he's become like a best friend. I talk to him all the time. He's Uncle Bill. We didn't even go up there to film. We just went up there to hang out with him.
Nice.
But yeah, he's doing absolutely incredible. He's got his own YouTube channel. He's inspiring a lot of people, and people are fired for his story. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about was the other person in the trailer. Every time we show this trailer, people get so fired up about Maggie, Rancher Maggie. And you know Maggie, and you spent some time with her. Like, what are your thoughts on Maggie? Because I guess one last thing I'll say is we filmed 60 people for this interview. Every single one of them sick, issues, everything. Maggie, nothing. There's nothing wrong with her. Like, she's not sick. She didn't have, she's like pretty much never sick. It's like one of the most remarkable things. I'm excited for people to see the documentary because they see the muscles, they see her jumping over fences, and that's all amazing and exciting. But when you spend time with her, she's brilliant, and she kind of has the energy of like a teenager or something. It's hard to describe. So I'm interested in your take because I know you spent some time on the farm as well.
But she has more energy than I do. I'll tell you that. You know, like she was up at 5 a.m. She was out with the cows. You know, she was up before 5 a.m. and out there with the cows every morning, 5 a.m. doing what she needs to do. You know, Elle and I, we didn't wake up till 9. You know, we showed up like they're already done like half a day's work at that point. We come in, meet them for breakfast. Really, for them, it's lunch, and we'd spend the morning with them. Then we go out and help out in the field. And it was just so nice just being out there as well. It was just such a nice life. It's just this idyllic area, and it's just a very nice way to live. And just you're busy, you're doing something, you're accomplishing something. You feel like this sense of accomplishment every day. You've done measurable things, and it's just very nice. And she is on no medication. And people say like she can't be that age or whatever. I've seen, and I know you have too. I've seen her birth certificate. I've seen her passport. I've seen her commercial driver's license. It all matches up. She was born 1941, and I've met her grandkids. I've seen pictures of her great grandkids. She's got these grandkids. There's 15-year-old kids that are like 6'6". These monsters, right? And all her kids are really tall too. They were all raised on meat. They just ate meat their whole lives, and well, at least growing up with Maggie. And then the grandkids, a lot of them did as well. And these guys are giants. They're actually the size and stature that humans are supposed to, because not only did our brains grow because we had to figure out how to take down mammoths and things like that. So, our evolution favored intelligent people, but these were intelligent hunters that had to physically take down an animal through intelligence, but also their physicality. And so our evolution favored both height, strength, athletic ability, and intelligence. So that's really what we should have, is the ancient Greek sort of idyllic form of the warrior scholar, right? The warrior philosopher, that you're this big, strong, physical. Plato was a gold medal wrestler, in ancient Athens, right? And that's what he's called, Plato. That's not actually his name. That because his shoulders are just super broad. He's just this big ass dude, and so his wrestling coach nicknamed him, wide load or whatever the hell was Plato. They call him Plato, and so that's his nickname. That's not actually his real name. And so that's that ideal form is this top athlete, top physical specimen, and having the intelligence as well to go along with it. And that's why we needed that. So you're seeing her whole family's like that. They're all extremely intelligent, they're all extremely well educated, and they're all big, strong, healthy people. And she's very healthy. No medications in her 80s. I mean, how many people in their 80s can say that they're not on medication? They've never been on medication, don't need medication. I mean, some people are not on medication. They should be on medication, but she doesn't need medication. And I've seen that again. Doing these sorts of things prevents the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the other sorts of issues that most people her age would be on medications for. So the same things that would prevent the need for her to go on those medication would prevent the high blood pressure, this and that. If you apply that to someone who has high blood pressure, who has diabetes, who has these other issues, it should reverse that, right? If it's actually the root cause. And that's what we're seeing. I'm seeing my patients, elderly patients that are coming in and starting a carnivore diet, and they could be on 8, 10, 15 medications, right? And one medication, like you said, is just called a prescription cascade. And this is something that we were taught in medical school. You don't do that. This is bad medicine. You don't prescribe something that has a side effect and you prescribe the next thing to deal with that side effect that has more side effects, and you keep prescribing. That is bad medicine. And yet the drug companies love this. There's Callie Means, who's a whistleblower for the food and drug companies, said this. He said that there was an executive from some pharmaceutical company that said, do you know my favorite medication is that our company makes, and you would hope it'd be something that treats like childhood leukemia or something like that, something that saves babies, right? And it's like, no, My favorite drug that our company makes are drugs that have side effects that we have other drugs that treat. And it's just like, someone needs to arrest you. I mean, that's just evil. Like you're bragging about profiting off of suffering that you're causing. That's not right. You're not trying to help anybody. You're trying to help yourself. And that's evil. Honestly, that is just evil. You're looking at people as chattel and just something that we can own and milk money out of. It's just evil. And so I've had patients that have been able to, de-prescribing is a major part of my practice. You put people on these interventions, and now you have to get them off these medications that they don't need anymore.
Yeah.
And now causing harm. They're going too far the other way. And I have one. This wasn't a patient of mine, but it was a friend of mine who's a general practitioner here, was working in geriatrics, so with elderly medicine. And she contacted me and said, "Hey, there's a patient of mine, and I think you'd like to know this, that he was 86 years old. He checked himself into a nursing home basically to die because he couldn't take care of himself anymore. His family couldn't take care of him, so he just had to sort of basically sit here and just wait for his body to give up entirely and just go away." And kind of a depressing thought, but definitely a depressing thought. And he came across some of my videos, and he decided just to give carnivore a try. And it's like, well, what do I got to lose? And she said that in 3 months, he was not only back home living independently, but he was working out, lifting weights 3 days a week, swimming twice a week, and off all medications, all of them. 3 months, right? So you have to sit up and take notice when that happens again and again, thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of times, millions of times now around the world, because that's a strong signal that this is actually addressing the root cause. This is actually root cause medicine. And sure, let's get randomized controlled trials going on this. I'm all for it. I'm in the works of doing several studies at the moment, several certainly cohort studies and case reports and case series. We have one on MS. We're coming out 10 to 12 patients, depending on what our final numbers are, that have reversed their multiple sclerosis, which is this is a fatal disease. It cripples people, and yet we're seeing people not only improve symptomatically, and some people are getting out of wheelchairs and things like that, but on MRI, their lesions are shrinking, which, as far as I know, has never been shown in any publication ever. This is going to be a first, and
should be on the news. That should be front page news, by the way. It's crazy.
It should definitely be. And you know what? Honestly, I'm going to try to get this out there as much as possible to see if we can get this. Because that's the thing, when Ozempic makes front page news on 60 Minutes, they're talking about this amazing new weight loss drug and things like that. But then, the Journal of American College of Cardiology do an umbrella review looking at meta-analyses and randomized controlled trials showing there's no connection between saturated fat and cardiovascular disease at all. Major publication in a major journal, no one knows about it. Not even doctors, not even cardiologists. The Minnesota coronary experiment gets published 40 years after it was buried in the 70s, gets published in the BMJ, is another top medical journal, in 2014, showing that when you, in a randomized placebo-controlled trial, that when you give people, when you change animal fats to vegetable oils and margarine, that you indeed lower blood sugar or serum cholesterol and LDL, but also more people die of heart attacks and strokes as a result. And that got buried by Ansel Keys 50 years ago now. And it wasn't uncovered until 40 years later when it was published in the BMJ. No one heard about that. I didn't hear, I was just out of medical school. Why the hell wasn't that? Why wasn't that in some, journal club? Because we don't do, we don't look at these things. It's not published. It's not publicized, right? And so, but Ozempic is, because they pay for that to be out there. These news programs and things like that, it's like journalism. It's not journal. It's not like, ooh, that's a story. They're being paid to do that. They're the pharmaceutical companies in America anyway are the major funders and sponsors of the media outlets. And so they say what things get covered, and they actually have a say in what does not get covered as well. And so when Ozempic comes out, or this drug or that drug, it's absolutely going out. It's going to make the papers because it's being paid to. And so this is not being paid to, but I'm going to do everything we can. Dr. Unwin in England is really good at this. You know, he's published these things, these case series and cohort studies and things like that, or even just his own clinical practice results showing that you can reverse diabetes and all these other sorts of things. And because he knows how to get this out there online, people want to publish him. They want to get him because his papers get a lot of traction. They get a lot of airtime, and so it sort of forces that because it's so popular naturally. And so hopefully that's what we can do with this, and hopefully we can get enough people, neurologists, etc., sit up and pay attention and say, that's interesting. I've never seen that happen before. Maybe we should look into this, and it's not going to hurt anybody. And they say, well, probably not going to help, but it's not going to hurt. So, you know, first do no harm. It's not going to hurt anybody. Okay, why don't we try it? And you start seeing that signal as well. Okay, well then maybe that's enough traction that we can put together, you know, a randomized controlled trial, see what happens, you know. So it all starts somewhere, and I'm all for that. But I think there's certainly enough evidence out there to just at least apply this. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Right.
It could potentially help. You're removing things that objectively can cause harm. We know about these plant toxins, lectins, oxalates, etc., that can indeed cause issues, and just see what happens. Why not? You know, and so I do that in my patient population, and it's dramatic. There's nothing like this that I've ever been taught in medical school or beyond that works as well as this. Nothing. There's nothing.
Are you still looking for subjects for that study?
For the MS study?
Yeah.
We're sort of towards the end of it, but if there's a good candidate that you think would be beneficial, especially if they have sort of before and after MRIs, you know, that's really helpful, because that's what we want to show. We want to show the before and after, and show like, hey, not only does this not progress, but in some people it's actually shrinking down. And yeah, if you have someone that's good like that, certainly would be good to consider them. We may or may not be able to use them at this point because we're sort of towards it, but could very well potentially use them. Did you have someone in mind?
Yeah, I just met a lady today, Myra Jane. She had severe MS, and all of her symptoms are essentially gone. So I said, hey, I know Dr. Chaffee's got this study going on. I don't know if you know about it or not. She didn't. So I'll make sure that I get her information to you.
Yeah, definitely. And, just the email that we use for my YouTube channel, just the Anthony Chaffee at Gmail, she can, put that, if she's interested, she should put that in and put in, MS study and the tagline and things like that. And other people are interested too. We might be able to use you, but it's, we need, at this point, we need to wrap up. So we would need to get sort of all that sort of sorted out. And if someone has before and after MRIs, especially, because right now, sort of the last piece of the puzzle is we're getting the follow-up MRIs on some. We have follow-up on a lot of people, but we don't on some of them. So we're waiting for those follow-up MRIs, and then we can start packaging this together and finishing it up and getting it ready for publication. But especially if someone has that prepackaged that they had the before and after MRIs, and they've shown whatever it shows, be it no progression, maybe small progression, or realistically shrinkage of the lesions, which is what we're seeing a lot of, then that would be great, and we probably could use them quite well for that.
Okay, I'll definitely let her know. And then Carrie, for the series, I mean, MS seems like a perfect episode. So
I was just thinking,
yeah,
you gotta open up the cameras again. It looks like you're not done.
That would be incredible. Well, the series we filmed quite a bit that's going to go in the series in terms of cancer and mental health, but we don't have enough to quite finish it yet. Our goal is to finish the documentary, then film more of the series. But a whole episode on MS would be incredible. There's so many though. Yeah. I'm hoping that the documentary takes off, and then we can just keep going with more of these stories. Because congestive heart failure, I know I've chatted with you about that before. That was my big issue that I've completely reversed on carnivore. It's in my medical records. It's so funny. People still tell me, you're a ticking time bomb. Any second now, I'm going to have a heart attack. I just, by the way, I'm doing a video on this, but I just got my CAC done about a week ago. Big fat 0. I'll post that, and people are still going to say, yeah, but you're still going to fall over and die at any moment now. But with the congestive failure, wait any second now.
You're gonna die of a lack of heart failure, Carrie. I mean, that's the main thing,
right?
Right?
No. But
you need that heart failure. That's good for you.
Since I talked about that on my channel, I haven't heard so many similar stories of people reversing their congestive heart failure or AFib or lifelong, like irregular heartbeats reversing on carnivore over and over and over again. It's crazy. It's amazing, especially on the heart disease front, because everyone that goes carnivore, even though it's wrong, and I understand it's wrong, they're all worried they're going to clog their arteries, they're going to have a heart attack, and that's all people are thinking about. And it's literally doing the precise opposite. My heart has never been healthier by all accounts and measures than it is now. 800 and almost 900 days on carnivore now.
Yeah. You're going to have like 1,000-day celebration or something like that?
Tomahawk ribeye. Everyone that ends in a 0, you get a big ribeye for. So
Okay.
Nice. Yeah. So that's every 10 days, basically. Anything that ends in a 0.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. You gotta have a big ribeye. Gotta cook one up.
810, 820. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Any day that just ends. That's usually when I have a tomahawk, and that's a big steak. It's like yeah.
So I want to be respectful of your time, Dr. Chaffee. I know we're at an hour now. I don't know if you got a little more time, but maybe we show the second trailer now.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Have you seen it yet?
I don't know if I have. I've seen I think one that you guys released before, but I may not have seen this one. Yeah.
I'm excited for you to see it live with us. That's pretty awesome. You're a big part of it for sure. I'll just give a quick preface. When you do a movie like this, a documentary, you usually have multiple trailers and clips and teasers. This particular trailer isn't a traditional trailer. We're going to be doing a third one. And the third one is going to be really tricky because it needs to be accessible to the general public. The third one is going to be your typical movie trailer to get people in the seats. So this one, the goal of this one was to show the scope and scale of the project that we filmed 60 interviews all over the world. It was for the donors, the GoFundMe supporters, all those folks. So it's a little bit different. We basically tried to show, like, we filmed a lot of people and we put a lot of people in this, but you're definitely a big part of it, Dr. Chaffee. And for anyone that's watching it or wants to rewatch it or share it, we always get that afterwards. You can just go to healinghumanity.movie. It's right there. And please, if you want to help out, the best thing you can do is share. We also have a free newsletter if you want to sign up. We won't send you anything unless it's important, like when we do our third trailer, when the documentary's done, sort of thing. But yeah, with all of that said, here we go with trailer number 2.
When I walk into a grocery store and see thousands of items on the shelf, that does not register in my brain as food. And of course it's not. This has never been food to any human being for the entirety of human history.
We've been soaking up the wrong information for so long.
Everything I thought I knew about nutrition turned out to be wrong. And it doesn't take that long to figure it out if you look at the actual science.
Your body, even though you feel like it betrayed you years ago, you actually betrayed it.
I was following the rules and getting sicker for it.
I was hopeless. I was really hopeless, and I thought, yeah, this is the way it's going to be.
I don't think I would have made it. I honestly don't. I mean, I was 69 pounds, almost hooked up to a feeding tube.
I probably had 30 days left until I was dead.
My thought was, I'm going to die, and I'm not going to have a chance to tell everybody that I love them one last time.
That's just more pills and more pills and more pills and more sickness and more disease.
I look at people now on the street and I see them not doing well, and I just wonder what the food that they're eating is doing to them.
We're learning from our past way of eating that somehow we're damaged and diseased.
I want to live in a world where every doctor is not managing disease, but trying to get to the root cause of why people are sick in the first place.
That's what being a doctor's all about, isn't it? Being able to take somebody who's got no hope and give them hope. And it's a real hope. It's a true hope. It's not a false hope. I'm not interested in any other profession.
There you go, right in my face. Perfect. I just remember being so excited about being alive again.
Changing my diet, absolutely saved my life.
Plain and simple, I would not be here today.
I have my life back.
It was like with a new lens, new eyes, was using them for the first time.
Even though I'm 5.5 years in, I still wake up feeling impressed.
I felt the best I ever felt in my life.
I never thought I'd have a life. I really thought my life was over.
And if I hadn't have found this lifestyle, that I would not be sitting here with you today. No way.
I'm 82 years old, which is just a chronological number.
Pull yourself up, you swing your leg over, and you're over.
It's not healthcare, it's sick care. We don't need doctors if we're eating properly. We don't need medication.
That was badass, man. I really liked that. That was really good. Yeah, that was cool.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. No, it was so good. And and it set it up right, because like everyone's just like, look, I was dying. I had 30 days left. I was just it's just this hopeless sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, the music kicks on and everything's uplifted, and it's like, hey, I'm back. I've got all this stuff. That was awesome. I really liked that.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
One of the things I just wanted to say real quick, all of those individuals, just some of them, the healing is incredible. Like, it's jaw dropping. But really, one of the crazy things, Dr. Chaffee, filming all this, was people just kind of reclaiming their humanity. I don't know if that's the best way to say it. People saying, like, I overcame my type 2 diabetes. I overcame this, I overcame that. But I feel like I'm alive for the first time. And a lot of them are kind of like pissed off. Like, I could have felt this way my whole life, and I'm just feeling this way now, just full of energy, living my life to the fullest. That's been one of the kind of remarkable parts of this whole journey, is seeing that in people.
Yeah, it's something that, like, if you haven't seen it yourself, if you haven't lived it yourself, it's just like it seems too good to be true. And it's just like there's no way people are doing that, which is, I mean, I understand, it's just that's not what we've seen, and that's not what people have experienced. And so, people are saying that this is just, it's sort of too much. You just, maybe, yeah, you're getting rid of processed food. That's really what you're doing. It's like, no, this is goes so much deeper than that. It goes, it's so much more than that. I have patients that if they use seasonings, it'll flare their autoimmune conditions. Right. I mean, they just cannot handle any plant material whatsoever. Certainly not any processed agrochemical ridden garbage, but even, whole fruits and vegetables, they cannot handle it. I mean, some people are so sensitive that I, one patient well, is a person that I just sort of helped out, did some consultations with. He had very extreme ulcerative colitis, which is something that really responds really well. All autoimmune issues do to carnivore. And he's very, very strict. And he said that it completely changed his life, gave him his life back, same sort of idea. But he was he thought he was about 80% better. And there were still some issues there, but he was so much better. It was night and day. He could live again. I mean, he could actually function. And, but there was just it's just weird. There's just these little things that were still nagging and still on there, and you even go into just beef and water, we basically had to start trying to go just grass finished beef and lamb, right? So some people are so sensitive they can't even handle the inappropriate plants that the animal that they're eating ate, right? So for people to say no, that can't possibly be, it's just like you're not there, you're not seeing this, you're not treating patients with this on a day-to-day basis. And, but when you do start seeing that, it starts really, well, it's just miraculous. I mean, it really is miraculous. And when you understand the physiology behind it, it makes sense. There are toxins, you don't want these toxins in your body. Some are worse than others. Some will just kill. Oh, it's not that toxic, as I ate a salad the other day, I didn't die. Like, okay, yeah, no one's saying that it's going to kill you today. It's about damage and inflammation and buildup over time. And in some people, that's not the case. They will have absolutely a much more extreme reaction to that. Michaela Peterson, she has a salad. She gets a massive rheumatoid flare up, and is in excruciating pain. So she's very sensitive to that. The native populations, Inuit, Native Americans, etc., that have far higher rates of chronic disease and illness when eating a Western diet. And that's something that has been documented anthropologically for centuries. This is in the current anthropological literature, that the diseases and health issues that Native populations alive right now and historically get are accidents, injuries, war, trauma, right? And infectious disease, right? Those are the major things that afflict them. And their modal age is in the 70s or even 80s, meaning that when they live to adulthood, how long do people live? It's as long or longer than us, right? But they're not dying from diabetes and heart disease and cancer. They're dying from a harsh existence, not getting enough food, and getting killed by a leopard. You know what I mean? So it's a very different thing, and their infant mortality rate is very high because they're in the middle of the woods, right? They're not at pediatric hospitals and things like that, and having a NICU and any sort of other issue, can be addressed there. So. But when they transition, this is in the current anthropological literature. This is not me saying this. This is anthropologists right now saying this, that when they transition from their, traditional way of life, which is not as traditional as we think, everything has been changed over the centuries and millennia due to necessity. Certainly not the same as what our traditional life would have been prior to the megafauna dying out in the end of the last ice age. That, excuse me. That when they transition to a more Western diet, a more Western way of living, and start living in cities and things like that, then their health issues transition as well. So when their lifestyle changes, their health issues change. And so then they start getting the so-called diseases of civilization. That's what they're termed. What the hell is that? Chronic diseases, non-communicable chronic diseases. So the diabetes, the heart disease, the cancers, mental health disorders, autoimmunity, etc. They don't get any of these when living lifestyle X. And then they change to a Western lifestyle, then they get it. They get hit full in the face with it. So that, again, shows that causality, cause and effect relationship. And here in Australia, I have patients that work in the Aboriginal communities, Aboriginal Australian communities. And they were saying, it was like the Aboriginal population, this is something that I saw early on. They age much faster is what it said, but they get diseases so much faster at younger and younger ages. So you have to consider them. Sort of in an older age group. You have to sort of basically add 20, 30 years to whatever their age is, because they just get these diseases so much quicker. So someone who's 35, you have to sort of consider them as a geriatric population, right? Which is weird to think about. But there's a lot of hesitancy in the Aboriginal population to go through traditional Western hospitals and treatments and things like that. Even they get cancer. We had a young boy who was 20 years old. He had bowel cancer. 20 years old, has bowel cancer. And so like, okay, we need to do surgery. We need to do this, whatever. And he just took off. He was just like, nope, not dealing with that. And that was a bit weird, but what was said is like, yeah, that's really common. They abscond a lot and they just take off. They don't really like getting treated here. So they go do their own thing. Well, in speaking with people that work with these communities and maybe people here have worked or in that community or work with that community as well. But what I was told from my patients who work in those communities is that what they're doing is they don't trust Western medicine. They don't trust Western hospitals. They don't think that it actually helps them. And that it's not the right thing to do. What they do is they go out and live in the bush with their relatives that are out there, and they go back to their traditional ways of living. They take off their shoes, they start eating goanna and kangaroo, and they just get back to basics. And that is what they do to heal themselves from these Western diseases. And, we don't know the rates of success and all that sort of stuff, but that's what they do. And they get sick and they get diabetes, they get this, they get that. They go out in the bush and they go on walkabout, and they just stay off in the wild for several months or however long, and then they come back and bright, shiny, and healed. So, this again shows that cause and effect relationship, right? That you change your lifestyle and you'll change your health outcomes. And it is that easy. It's just, how do you change it? We're being told, don't eat meat, eat a bunch of fiber and plants and low fat and seed oils. They've never existed, but for some reason we've been missing it all our entire existence as humans. We've been missing this thing that's never existed. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
Right.
I can see that. And and so we're told the wrong thing, and so we're told to eat garbage that makes people a lot of money. And again, that goes back to that evil background issues. Like, you're profiting off of people's suffering. You're making this product that is harming people, and you're lying to them, and you're spending billions of dollars marketing this as health food and paying people to lie and say that it is health food, and paying for fraudulent studies to suggest that it's health food, and it's garbage. I mean, just do something real, like produce something that's useful and make money that way. Be a useful addition to humanity, and the system will reward you if you do something that's beneficial for people and they want it and it helps their life. Then not only do you benefit, but they benefit. So that's a win-win. And the Milton Friedman, Nobel Prize winning economist, used to say that the free market system is forced altruism. I can't make a single dollar. You can be the greediest person in the world. You can't make a single dollar unless someone else is willing to give you that dollar in exchange for whatever you're producing. And so it forces you, even if you're just this low down scum and you just don't want to help anybody, if you don't do something that's beneficial to other people that they're willing to give you money for, that give their hard-earned money for, you don't make any money. So even if you're a bastard, you still got to do something useful. The problem is that these bastards have figured out ways of not being useful and still making money, pretending to be useful because they're spending all this money, muddying the waters. And that bothers me. Like, just do something useful, you bastard. Like, I mean, it's not that hard. You're working harder to put forward a shitty product that hurts people and then lie about it and cover it up. And then you would if you just did something useful with your life. It's just like, how useless are you, and how much of a terrible existence do you have that you subsist off of the suffering of others and trying to trick them into thinking that it's beneficial. Oh, but I make all this money. Like, dude, your life sucks. You live an empty existence, and you're a useless human being, and you're not benefiting humanity. You're worsening it. So, and those people, they need to be in prison, honestly, because they're doing things that are knowingly harming people. They're lying, they're muddying the waters, and they're misleading people intentionally in order to make money and profit off of their suffering. That's a criminal offense. These tobacco company executives that lied for decades and said, no, tobacco is fine, smoking's safe, it's not addictive, all these other sorts of things. And they knew that was wrong, and they lied, and they put out, they paid researchers, can't really call them scientists because they're just frauds, to push out these fake studies suggesting that cigarette smoking was safe and harmless and wasn't addictive and things like that. And then they got caught. And what happened? They got fined hundreds of billions of dollars because of the health ramifications that it was going to cost the government to sort of pay for it. Did any of these guys go to jail? Right? I mean, perjury. I mean, number one, they perjured themselves in front of Congress, right? So why didn't they go to jail for that? And also, this is malice of forethought. They know that the product that they're putting out is poison. I mean, this is like poisoning a well and knowingly harming people and killing people. I mean, it's this, the amount of damage that caused. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of millions of people that were negatively affected by this, if not more. At a certain point in the 1920s, 4 out of 5 men smoked. So you're talking 80% of the male population in America smoked in the 1920s. So, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of people, if not billions of people around the world that this negatively affected. That's crimes against humanity. That's Nuremberg trial. That's like you get a blindfold and a cigarette, one of your cigarettes, and you stand against a wall, and that's it for you. That's the type of thing. I mean, the Nazis didn't kill and harm nearly as many people as the tobacco executives did. And did they even spend a night in jail for doing that? Not that I know of. And they certainly not as long as they should have if they spent anything. And I don't think they did. The same thing with the food companies. It's the same MO. The tobacco companies bought a lot of the food companies like Kraft and et cetera. They're the largest processed food manufacturers in the world, and they're doing this criminal act. This is malice aforethought. They know that their products harm people. They know this causes disease, and they're profiting off of it, and maybe even profiting off of the medications that they're selling us after the fact when we do get disease. And again, selling us a product that has a medication that has a side effect that they have other medications to treat. So this is evil, and this is wrong, and it's criminal. They're knowingly causing harm. Right? That's malice aforethought, right? And they're doing it to profit. So there's no difference between these guys and someone who goes and poisons people or robs people and hurts them and murders them and takes their money. This is what they're doing. They're causing harm, they're causing damage and social disorder, and they're causing death, and they're causing unnecessary harm and death, and just to take people's money, And so that's no different than a criminal on the street, robbing and killing somebody for their watch, So until we start prosecuting these people criminally and demanding that these people be held criminally accountable for their actions. I mean, if it's, there's always plausible deniability and things like that. But when we have the tobacco companies where there's documentation saying that they knew for a fact that this was causing harm and they were hiding it, you can't hide that in legalese to say, oh, well, we just didn't really know and all that. Yeah, you did. It's in black and white. You said you knew, Right. And why the hell weren't they criminally held accountable? So until that happens, this is never going to stop, because it's just those fines. I mean, they fine the tobacco companies like over $200 billion, right? Wow, that's a lot of money. How many trillions did they make doing this? Right? If you're only going to fine them a small fraction of the money that they made profiteering off of people's suffering, it's just cost of doing business. You had the issues with the COX-2 inhibitors, you had the issues with Oxycontin and things like that. They got fined billions of dollars, but they made tens of billions of dollars. Right. So this is just you pay 10%, in fines and things like that. Great. All right. That's fine. You still made all this profit. It's still worth doing it in the future. Whereas if you fine them more than they made and profited from whatever criminal act that they did, then they start sitting up and taking notice, because now you're hitting the bottom in their bottom line, because it's not about oh, well, we still made money. So who gives a shit? It's now, holy shit, we lost all that money and more, and now we may not even be able to continue on as a company. And you put those assholes in charge in jail too, then you're going to start seeing something happen. But until and unless you hold these people criminally accountable, and until and unless you fine them more than they made for doing that criminal act, it's never gonna change, because it's still profitable to keep doing this, and it's not like they're going to face any jail time for doing it.
It's so evil, and the more you get into it, the deeper you get into it, the more evil you realize it is. Making it more addictive, let's get the kids hooked early at a younger age, because then you got a lifelong consumer. I really think, looking back, history's not going to look back on us kindly. Really, you're getting children hooked on this stuff too early, just for more and more money. Get them in that cycle of sickness early on. It's crazy. When you were talking about the economics earlier and the useful, do something useful, it's interesting and kind of ironic, because the most useful thing that's ever happened to me is carnivore, and it was free. But in retrospect, I've said this before, if I would have had if I would have known the power of this, I'd be I'd mortgage my house. I'll start over from scratch. I would do anything, because I was so unhealthy and so sick. You don't have your health, you really have nothing, kind of thing. So the economics of it is interesting. It's too bad they can't incentivize a better way around it. All the incentives are screwed up. All the incentives are completely messed up. If the incentives around congestive heart failure were to cure it, I probably would have healed it a long time ago, versus just let's see how much money we can make off of it.
Yeah, well, that's what Professor Seifried says is when we figure out how to make putting people on ketogenic diets and those sorts of things, we find able to make that profitable, then you'll start seeing this going. That's okay. I mean, even just getting into the news, if there's a profit motive behind it, then you actually have a marketing budget to pay a few $1 million to get this on national news across the country, right? So but you can do this yourself. And that's why we do this grassroots movement the way that we are and the way that you are. It was a huge part of that is the work that you're doing. Is this getting out to more and more people? Because we can just do this right now. You don't need a doctor to do this for you. You can change your diet today, and you can see these benefits today. If you have medications and you need help deprescribing, then you do need a doctor to help you with those sorts of things. And yes, if you have specific health conditions and things like that, you should consult with your doctor before you make any drastic sort of changes. You're like, this is not specific medical advice. This is just generality. You can do this right now. You don't need this to change in the guidelines. If you think that's something that's going to benefit you, you can do this, and you can do it in a very safe manner. And you can find someone, like myself, like some other clinicians that have a lot of experience with this and can help you transition safely and help you deprescribe safely and all these other sorts of things. Rivero, Dr. Baker, his company, that's like all they do. They're in all 50 states in the US, and they're helping people deprescribe. They're helping people get healthy and then just stay healthy. My business model for my practice is a self-limiting one, where there's a lot of upfront education, teaching people how to live their life and how to be healthy, getting them off these medications, and then keeping them going, showing them all their blood work, all these massive improvements, and they just go, wow, this is amazing. Never going back on that one. And and then if they're on medications, I might see them once a year just to make sure that they're doing okay. And oftentimes I don't. Oftentimes it's just new patients. And I have like a 3-month backlog on new patients because there's so many that it's all word of mouth. I don't advertise for this, not on my social media and not on, not locally, right? It's all word of mouth. So these people that we've gotten better, they impact the people around them. Their family sees that, their friends see that, their kids see that, and they see that for their kids. They're like, hey, look, you need to go get help. You need to go change your life because this is something that I was suffering with and now I'm not, right? And so, we get referrals constantly from different people. It's not just from my social media. Yes, I get people that come in and want to know who I am from my YouTube channel, but the majority are coming in because of word of mouth of other people that we helped and got off all their medications or most of their medications. And so, that's the thing, we can do this in a grassroots way. Anybody can make these changes in their life and they can make these positive changes. We don't need them. Just because they're selling harm doesn't mean we have to buy it. We are still in a free market system for now. They're really trying to stop that and trying to make it so we're not allowed to buy beef. We're not allowed to buy the things we want, that we have to buy the crap that they're pitching out. And that's, any sort of totalitarianism. They're going to try to force you to profit them. Right. And so, but until then, we can still make that choice ourselves. And no matter what they're selling, no matter what they're pitching, we don't have to buy it. And unless we buy it, it doesn't matter what they say. And then hopefully enough people will get on board of this. I mean, we're seeing some very, very, I was saying this years ago that, we need to get this grassroots movement going as much as possible and get enough background noise and enough people on this healing that then it becomes politically expedient for people to start looking into this. And now we're seeing that in the Maha movement. RFK is on a carnivore diet.
Yeah.
And he's saying this has massively improved his health. And you listen to his voice, it's actually started to get better, which is amazing, because that's something that he's, really struggled with. And from what I've read, has really been upsetting for him, as you would expect, not being able to use your voice as you normally would. And a lot of people, from what I hear in that Maha movement, like RFK and the people that he's influencing are doing this now too, and getting interested and losing tons of weight and getting their health back. So, eventually we'll hopefully be able to start getting that more top down approach of saying, hold on, we've been lied and misled for a long time. And then when that starts coming out, then people, a much broader audience will be able to see this. But either way, we can do it right now. I mean, I've been doing this for nearly a decade now, and there's just not a chance in hell that I'm going back. They cut off the beef supply, I'm going hunting. Like, that's all there is to it. I'm getting a ranch, I'm making raising my own animals. Like, you're not going to stop me from from eating properly and feeding my kids properly. It's just not, it's not going to happen. And, there'll be a bloody revolution, and that I'll be happy to be a part of if that ever comes to that point, because we have to protect ourselves and our well-being and the well-being of our children and our future as well. We cannot allow them to control us in that manner.
Yeah. The ripple effect of carnivore, which you were talking about a little bit, that's been something that's just been remarkable. It's crazy. There's nothing else in the world. There's no other intervention, medication, anything in the world where you see the ripple effect like this. Like my whole family's doing it now. So many people I've talked to that have found healing. It's exactly like you said. They become an example to their family, and then their spouse is doing it, and their kids are doing it, and there's nothing else like that in the world. I feel like it's a lot of people do it and they don't talk about it, but I really feel like it's about to just explode. And like you said, with RFK and Maha and all of that, I really feel like it's about to take off for sure. That's been one of the biggest comments we had on the trailer is you guys should send this to RFK. And we're like, we did. If you guys like this, you send it to RFK, because the more we get it out there and tag it, the more likely he is to see it. But the first trailer we showed you earlier, Dr. Jordan Peterson tweeted out. So we're definitely getting some eyeballs on it for sure. But yeah, anyone that wants to help out, that's one of the best ways you could do it. Share for sure.
Yeah, Wide Eye Productions, who produced Fat Fiction and Cholesterol Code, actually had high praise for the trailer. So that was unexpected. And,
yeah,
but I think your reaction beats everybody's.
I was going to say too, is there any news on where this will ultimately be released? Do you guys know?
Yeah. So initially, we've consulted with a major film production company, and their advice to us was finish the documentary, and then we're going to submit it to film festivals. And then our plan is it's going to be like a hybrid. My wife and I own a little small town movie theater here, so it's definitely playing in our movie theater, but we're hoping to release it in several movie theaters and do like a hybrid. But with all of that said, the goal is not to make money off of this. The goal is to make it as accessible as possible. I want to reach millions of people with the documentary. So that's kind of the approach we're taking, finishing it up and then getting it out to the world.
Yeah, nice. Well, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that anyway. I've been really anxiously awaiting the finished result, finished product, and so it'll be great. It'll be nice. I mean, with the animal documentary that came out recently, they were able to get that in a limited release in theaters around the country. But also they had this thing where it's just like, if you wanted to sponsor it in your town, you could get it shown at a movie theater local to you, and you sort of get like a watch party and get like local carnivores in your area and actually go and watch this in the movie theater. I thought that was a great idea, and we could even try to like organize things like that where you sort of get it sort of in different locations if people had the desire. If you had local carnivore groups, there's Facebook groups all over for almost everything. There's Perth carnivores. Perth is this little city on back and beyond, but yeah, there's Facebook group Perth carnivores and things like that. So here in Perth, maybe you could think of like, hey, why don't we get this a release here or something like that? Talk to a movie theater, get it set up, and get all the people on carnivore or interested in carnivore, to come check it out. I think we do that certainly.
Yeah. We're planning on doing that too. It's been crazy, Dr. Chaffee. We've been filming all around the world. We'll usually film in one area and then we'll do a meetup. And the meetups have been turning into like a movement. It has been incredible. Even here, I live in Montello, Wisconsin, population 1,400. We did a little meetup at my movie theater and it sold out. Like every seat was sold. It's like, it's been growing, but so we've been keeping up that momentum, but it's like everywhere we've gone, we do that meetup, we leave, the group stays together. They're like, oh, this is cool. I didn't realize there's other carnivores here. And there's kind of forming little groups. So we plan to hit all of those when the documentary's ready. And I'm hoping to go to there's so many independently run movie theaters all around the country. We're hoping to go to a bunch of those, do a big carnivore meetup, and then premiere the documentary and just go from like city to city doing that.
That would be cool. And then at that point, if there's enough, traction, groundswell, sort of grassroots support, is that then a something that you could then market to like a Netflix or something like that?
Yeah, 100%. And on that topic, most documentaries that go out, they're passionate. They do a documentary, they release it, they try to get on Netflix or something like that. The difference with ours that I'm really excited about is we've got such a movement and momentum going. Like I said, Jordan Peterson tweeted us out, but with everyone that we have involved in the documentary and all the momentum we have going, and all we've had nearly 4,000 donations on GoFundMe, all of the support we've had. We've got like a built-in audience already, and that's something that like Netflix or these streaming services, that's what they look for. It's interesting, like some movies you see nowadays, they pick this actor instead of that actor because they have a bigger presence, social media, bigger audience. And most documentaries, I would say the majority of them, they don't have a built-in audience of people that are excited about it already. So we've definitely got that working in our favor as well.
Yeah, nice. Well, it'll be great. And, not that Netflix is the end all be all, but it's a lot of people see it, and, sort of you get on there and you get out to a lot of people. And I think that, as far as making money is concerned, I don't think you make money when you get on Netflix, but you do get to get out to their audience. And so, I think that it's like the documentary, was it Sacred Cow or something like that? I think they lost money, I think, ultimately on that, but it had a huge impact on people, and started changing that narrative of like, it was just this one-sided, cows are evil and destroy the earth. It's like, no, they really don't. And it's really important to have them, or we won't have an earth. We'll have just widespread, ecological destruction if we don't have enough animal agriculture, livestock, and these big ruminant animals that made the ecology what it is, and we've been destroying it. So I think that just having that out there, and and that's sort of the nice thing about crowdfunding, is that you're sort of not really looking to recoup your losses. It's not like a business venture. This is just sort of like, hey, this is the community coming out and doing this, and driving this forward. And so hopefully.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, the other thing with the crowdfunding that's pretty amazing is we don't have like a bias. We're just telling the truth in the documentary. A lot of documentaries, you look into them, especially some of the vegan propaganda ones, they're sponsored by Beyond Meat, or there's some company behind it that's driving that narrative. So because ours is crowdfunded, we're getting the truth, good or bad. We're just sharing the truth, which is pretty powerful, and nice position to be in.
Yeah, most indie films there's no return on them. They're usually, most of them are money loss, for sure. But Carrie stated, we're not trying to make money with this. We're trying to make change, real change with humanity. And but it would be nice to try to recover some in order to help fund the series, to complete the vision.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and that's the thing too, is that hopefully, that does bring in enough money to continue the project and continue for future projects in this same vein. But also, that it's, what was I going to say? I literally completely lost the train of thought. Well, the main thing is just sort of recoup some of that to further the other projects anyway. And just get it out to as many people as possible. I mean, that's really the important thing. And it can also, drive people to awareness of whatever project you're doing. And even if you don't make actual money from its really like profit from its release, it will get more people out there aware and then you have more access to crowdfunding as well, saying, hey, we're doing this other project, we're doing this series. And now you have millions of other people that are seeing this going like, wow, that's a really good project. I want to get behind that, and send in $5, $10 or something like that. It makes a huge difference. When you have, 4,000 people have all donated, even a small amount from all 4,000 of those people has a huge impact on what you guys are able to do. So, even that is beneficial. But I think, this is definitely, when I see like a labor of love sort of thing, you and others that are doing this, it's just really important to you and to us to get this information out there, because we see it helping so many people. Not only has it helped us, but all the people the dozens and dozens of people that you've interviewed that have radically changed their lives. And these people that, it's sort of almost getting to be cliche at this point, but the amount of people that are saying that like, I was dying, I was going to die, I would have died if I did not find this. that this saved my life. You know, I see that all the time, if not every day, then nearly every day. And I get to see all the comments that I get on my videos and things like that. But it's when I do, I see it often enough that it's almost cliche at this point that it, you know, as people are saying that this saved my life, and I would not be here right now if it hadn't been for this. I mean, there's one gentleman who I had on my podcast, but he came up to me in Wyoming, and at the conference there, and or whatever gathering in Wyoming at the beef roundup. And he said that his rheumatoid arthritis was so bad, he was basically crippled. And he'd been very successful businessman, and all the medicine and money in the world wasn't helping him. And he was at the point where he was just bedridden, and he was in so much pain, just crippled with pain. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't function, couldn't get out of bed, couldn't live his life, couldn't spend time with his grandkids. And he basically made a decision that he didn't want to continue living anymore, and that this was it, and he wasn't going to do this anymore. And just that day, serendipitously, he came across a carnivore diet and people helping his same condition by just changing what they're doing. And it was like, all right, I'll try it. And he said within 2 weeks, he was out of bed and he was almost completely reversed. He was like, this is incredible. And that literally saved his life, because he was basically suicidal at that point. And it just completely changed it around. And he just said, and he traveled all the way out to Wyoming just so that he could see me and thank me. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing what you see. And I see that all the time. That's why I like going to these conferences as much, because I get to see, you know, people in real life, and they're so grateful, and there's massive improvements that they have. It's so heartwarming to see that. And
as a doctor, I would imagine that's got to be like the most. That's like why you became a doctor, right? And now you're just seeing it left and right.
Yeah, well, that's it. And you know, that's what the medical profession should be, is that you're actually helping people, and you're making their lives better from a health perspective. You know, and you know, we can't really do that as much anymore, unfortunately.
Right. The thing I think about too, Dr. Chaffee, is all the people that just went on their merry way and didn't leave you a comment, but also the other people that maybe started carnivore and healed themselves, but they don't think about the long term. And when you start thinking about the long term, the fact that these people, I really believe these people are going to live decades longer than they would have, thriving without like mobility issues and arthritis and aches and pains and dementia, Alzheimer's, and all these things that most people get. Most of them are completely oblivious to that fact, but the majority of them that do this and stick with it, they're going to live long, happy lives. They're going to be around another 30, 40 years longer maybe than they would have, and they're not even going to realize it, which is pretty incredible when you think about it that way.
Yeah, well, they're going to be like Maggie, bouncing over fences at 83 years old and corralling like raging bull. Literally, I mean, there was an actual raging bull that got loose and was like facing off through the fence with another bull, and this thing was huge, man. It was gargantuan. I've never seen a bull that's big. It was bigger than any like buffalo. So I was like, going out to Yellowstone and things like that. This was like twice the size of like a wild buffalo. This thing was huge. It was huge. And it was kicking up tufts of dirt. It shoot this plume 30 feet in the air behind it. It was like, good Lord, like just the raw power that was in this bull. It was insane. And she's looked at us, she's like, oh, his name was Growler. She's like, oh my God, Growler gets through there, he's going to kill him. He's going to kill that other bull. And we can't have that. So she goes busting over, and there's this big long fence. I was just like, okay, I'm going to go over and help open this gate. So I'm walking over there. She just goes hop straight over the damn thing, and she gets in there. She's like, Growler, get over here, and like the dog is sort of getting after it. She's like, Growler, come on, and I was just like, well, I hope she's okay, because I'm not going in there. I'm not, it's not gonna be good, because the thing is, she raised that thing. I mean, she birthed it, she calved it, so he's well used to her and isn't gonna hurt her. But it was just over the fence like that. It was she got over the fence before I could even start going over to open the fence. You know what I mean?
We taught me and Adam how to jump the fence properly. She gave us a lesson on it.
Yes,
pretty cool.
Yeah. Very detailed instructions.
Nice. The technique.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, human beings are genetically designed to live 120 years based on the length of our telomeres. I learned that in genetics 25 years ago. And we're dying 40, 50 years earlier, and we're calling that good. Oh yeah, you died in your 80s, you had a good life. No, that's early. Something wrong happened. right? And something had to go wrong for that to be 40 years early. And that's sad. That's actually really sad. I just lost my father, and he was in his mid 80s, and that was way too soon. He should not have gone. And there were some medical complications that were just too much for him to get over. But there were mistakes made, and that's why he passed away. And he should have lived longer, and that's devastating. And when you look at Maggie, she's a year younger than my dad, and she's in the prime of life. She's so healthy, and she's getting out, hopping over fences, dealing with cows and raging bulls and things like that. And she even says, she's like, I'm middle-aged. I feel middle-aged. I'm just in the prime of my life. I'm just going to keep going. And she is. That is middle-aged. Yeah. And so living out to our natural design, or biologically, we should be able to live out our natural biological lifespan. And the reason that you die in your 80s, maybe there's something inappropriate, something wrong that happens in the hospital. Like my father got a hospital-acquired pneumonia, and got extremely sick from that, and had some issues that actually, unfortunately, should not have happened, and made him worse. That's it's no one's fault. They were just mistakes that were made. But that's the problem. Medical errors count as like the third leading cause of death in America. And unfortunately, that was the case here. But most of the time when you're dying in your 80s is because you were sick in your 50s. And you've been sick for decades, right? And so if you're healthy in your 80s, and you don't necessarily have to be unhealthy at 100 or 110. You might be a little more frail and not able to jump the fence as easily as you did before. But if you keep doing it, and you keep jumping the fence, and you keep going over, and you keep exercising, and you keep your body fit, actually you probably can. And so there's that element as well. But if you're able to stay healthy and eat the right thing, your body will last. And as long as if you're physically active and you keep your lean body mass and your musculature developed, and you keep working on it and trying to improve it as you age, there's no reason why you can't be 110 working in the garden, working in a pasture, going to the gym, going on jogs. There's no reason for that. And in fact, there are people that are 100, 102 that run 5K 3 days a week, And so why can't you? The fact is you can. And you start now, and you don't stop, because once you stop, then you stop being able to, and that's the real problem. And so that's why we're doing this. And you can live like Maggie, you can live like our ancestors did, like the Native Americans did. Dr. J.H. Salisbury studied the Native Americans when he was doing his 30-year research project on human nutrition in the 1800s, and he found these guys were living well over 100, healthily, 110, 115 years old. He described a couple, a married couple, that were 110 and 115. 115-year-old man who was a spry elderly man who's running around, going out. He was very nervous because his wife was just sort of slowing down. As you see animals in the zoo being fed properly, they're healthy, active adults bouncing around, and then just one day they're just a bit slower, just a bit more tired, and one day they just don't wake up from a nap. Right. And that's what was sort of happening with his wife. And he's sort of frantic that this is going around. He's trying to find all these things, but he's 115 running around, and she was 110, just peacefully passing away, not stricken with decades of disease and illness and dementia, being stuck in a nursing home, drooling in the corner for a couple of decades. Right. It's just healthy adults. And that's what we can actually look forward to if we live a natural, biologically appropriate lifestyle.
100%. Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear about your dad too, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We've got the aging section in the documentary, like I talked to, and if we continue to get donations and GoFundMe and stuff like that, our first thing to do on the series is film Hal Cranmer. I think a lot of people are familiar with Hal. He's running some long-term care facilities. He's putting the residents on keto carnivore, and they are going home, and they're like surfing. And Adam's already talked to him. We have permission to go film him, and several of the residents actually like go back to their house. Most people that go in a facility like that don't go home. That's their
Never.
end. That's the end. So we're really hopeful that we'll be able to continue doing things, because that was another one where it's almost like we can't finish the documentary. We got to get his story in, but we had to cut it off at some point. So we're really hoping to get him in the series. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, it'd be very powerful. I mean, I interviewed him. He's great. And he's got, well, at least when I spoke to him on my interview, he had 4 nursing homes. And these are end stage nursing homes. People go in there with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, and they don't come out. They need a full-time nursing care. And you go there to die. I mean, that's the sad truth about it, is that your family can't take care of you anymore. You can't take care of yourself anymore. And you just need someone to just help you subsist and live out until you die. Right. But it's not like an enjoyable life when you sort of get to that point. And so he's affecting people in such profound ways that he's actually reversing some of these very severe cases of dementia, Alzheimer's, etc. That some of them are able to go home, or some that couldn't even remember their name, couldn't speak, they were nonverbal. All of a sudden they're speaking, they're remembering what meds they're on, or what meds they were on, they're not taking anymore, and they're out working in the garden and doing all these other sorts of things. It's pretty amazing. And it's one of those things that I'm glad you're interviewing him, because it's something that work and those results are something that have to get out there and have to get people to say, like, hold on a second, that doesn't need to happen to me or my parents. Yeah. Like, hold on a second, we need to get on this. Or
something everyone can get behind, right? Something everyone can get behind. Should be front page news. Another one of those, like this. He's already doing it. He's been doing it for a while now, and it's a little blip here and there, but everybody should know about that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can make it front page news. You make enough noise, and who knows? Maybe we can get a crowdfunding exercise to get some damn media attention. You know, I mean that's how the game is played. You pay for media exposure. Right. And so you can make a big enough story and get enough attention that they say this story could give us enough eyes that it's worth our time. But otherwise you have to pay for it. And so maybe that's the next step, crowdfunding a media campaign to get this sort of stuff out there, so that it does actually get on damn front page news, because it deserves it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Chaffee. You're incredible. We really appreciate you. You really helped kick off the whole documentary. You're a huge part of it. And thank you for having us on and sharing our trailers. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me. And it was great to see you guys. Keep up the good work. I'm really, I'm proud of you guys, honestly. I think you're just doing such great work. And I'm really happy that you guys are doing this. And I wish I could have done something like this myself. And I just didn't think that I was able to at the time. And so I'm just glad that someone is, and better men than I, and I was just very proud to be a part of this as well. So thank you all.
Appreciate your kind words. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us and for all the great feedback. If you guys want to watch the trailer again, I'll just mention real quick, healinghumanity.movie. It's right there on the front page. Share if you want. You can sign up for our newsletter. If you want to get one of our shirts, every penny goes towards the documentary. So thank you guys so much, and have a good night, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. See you guys next time.